I'd just like to start this presentation by getting you to think about what you would take if your house was on fire. Caitlin, what would you take? What would be the first thing that you'd grab if your house was on fire?
Probably my photo album.
Your photo album. And why would you take that?
Because it has photos of when I went to visit my grandparents in it.
Very good. Lachlan, tell me a little bit about what you would grab.
My computer.
And why would you take that?
It's got all my work on it.
Very good. And Andrew, if you were to go, if the house was on fire, what would be something that you would take?
Clothes.
And,
My wallet.
and why?
Well, I want something to wear. And also to have money.
Mm-hmm. So it's good to think about in an emergency situation, what you might consider important, and we're all going to be thinking about what's important if we're in a dangerous situation today. But the main thing that I am talking about is e-cigarettes and the danger that they have in a workplace environment. So I'd like to thank you all for coming in today, and I'm going to present a short PowerPoint presentation to you about the dangers of e-cigarettes. And then we can have a short discussion about how the risks that are involved in the workplace and how we could address those. So let's start. So first of all, what is an e-cigarette? An e-cigarette is a battery-powered device which has a liquid canister which fits onto an atomizer and a battery at the other end. You suck on the cartridge to draw the liquid into your lungs, and then you exhale that. It's often called vaping, and there's a few other types of nicknames that e-cigarettes have. A lot of people call them e-cigs, or you can call them ENDS, which is electronic nicotine delivery systems. Don't say that too fast. So what do they look like? They come in all different shapes and sizes, and quite often they're shaped like cigarettes. Often they come with interesting skull shapes. They can contain nicotine and glycerin and flavourings. There's over 7,000 flavours that could be available. Some of them are like gummy bear flavouring, chocolate, raspberry, vanilla. The studies on the health side of them is inconclusive at the moment. There have been some studies recently done in my research to show that there has been some indications that the long-term health effects of the glycerol, which is used in e-cigarettes, could be damaging to your lungs, but it's non-conclusive at the moment. But the nicotine is obviously an unsafe component. It's illegal to sell e-liquid containing nicotine in New South Wales. On the 27th of May 2015, the Greens MP Jeremy Buckingham lit up an e-cigarette in the Parliament, and I'm just going to show you this short YouTube clip from that day.
A New South Wales Greens MP has puffed on an electronic cigarette in Parliament to prove a point that laws are too loose. Upper House member Jeremy Buckingham inhaled an e-cigarette after raising concerns the government isn't doing enough to stop young people using them. The battery-powered device allows users to inhale a chemical vapour instead of smoke.
Is the government concerned that e-cigarettes are renormalising smoking and that there are currently no laws in New South Wales to prevent vaping in hospitals, vaping in schools, vaping on buses?
He was reprimanded for using the prop despite there being no laws to ban him from using it in Parliament. The Greens want e-cigarettes dealt with under the same laws as tobacco and nicotine.
So, e-cigarettes are the law. From the 1st of September 2015, it's an offence to sell e-cigarettes to minors under the age of 16. For adults to purchase e-cigarettes to minors from stores or from vending machines. The penalties for this would be $11,000 for individuals and $55,000 for corporations. Laws continue to change. From the 1st of December 2015, it will be an offence to use e-cigarettes in cars with children, but it is still legal to smoke an e-cigarette on public transport, in hospitals, in cafes, in schools, in the workplace. Advertisers aim to make e-cigarettes look very attractive, especially to women. But in reality, e-cigarettes might not be so appealing. Health regulations in New South Wales. There have been cases where e-cigarettes have caused burns, especially when people are using pressurised oxygen. So pressurised oxygen is when they put the little tubes in people's noses to allow them to breathe. There have been 111 fire incidents in the UK and 25 fire incidents in the US. And some of these issues have been related to when people are recharging their batteries. So are they safe? Now, if you don't want to see the graphic images, just close your eyes because it's a bit full on. Are you sure? So some of the incidents that have happened from e-cigarettes have been from them exploding. This is a man who has had injuries to his legs. Some vehicles have caught on fire where the e-cigarettes have actually exploded. And they explode in people's mouths as well as around oxygen, giving third-degree burns. Not very pretty. Okay, you can look back now. That's for you, honey. So, in summary, electronic cigarettes stimulate smoking. There's a range of styles. They cater to youth. They're appealing because they use the gummy bear flavours. The long-term health effects are inconclusive at this stage, but the risks are there, and the use of e-cigarettes in hospitals has been banned. There was that warning that was issued. Minors might be exposed to them. Worldwide injuries and deaths continue to be factors that are being reported daily. Based on this information, the question that I have for you is, has your opinion on e-cigarettes changed? I would like to throw that over to you, Caitlin. How do you feel?
Well, I guess I never realised that they could actually have nicotine in them. Like, I always thought they were just like the alternative if you didn't want to have a cigarette that, has all those health risks, like with cancer, that obviously has been linked to nicotine. But, I mean, it's a bit worrying that that could even be introduced into this other alternative, in, quotation marks. So, yeah, I didn't really realise that.
Mm-hmm. So your thing is you're concerned about the health risks. And Lachlan?
Well, I just never, I didn't know how dangerous it could be after, if even in a short period of time you could have one explode. Yeah. Pretty dangerous.
That is very dangerous. Would you ever consider using one as an alternative? Like, if there was a choice of an e-cigarette or a cigarette, which would you?
Well, since they haven't really determined the long-term health, long-term health requirements, it's very hard to distinguish if it's any better than a cigarette.
That's a good point. So the main thing that you're pointing out is the danger of having a cigarette, an e-cigarette, and how, whether they're safe or not. So the safety of the e-cigs. And what about you, Andrew?
I think there's a couple of factors that really play out. It's obviously, it feels like we've gone back 20, 30 years when cigarettes were a bit around, and there was a debate around cigarettes. It's the same debate with e-cigarettes. There are some other factors when it comes to, obviously, exploding. So they're removing the cancer health factor away, but then they've introduced this, this possibility of exploding. The other concerning point, I think, is the fact that it's not regulated. There's no regulation attached to it at all. So that's sort of, knowing that, I think that's a concern.
Yep. So unregulated.
Mm-hmm.
So based on, and you feel like we've gone backwards.
It's the same debate that we had when cigarettes were around with advertising. And
so based on that, I guess it's how do we make ourselves safer in the workplace? Just wondering if anyone has any ideas of how that could be, how we could do that to minimise the risks.
Awareness. If people are aware of the risks, they won't use them, and so here's the problem.
Could you think of an example of how we could raise that awareness?
You could do the same thing we're doing with cigarettes now, doing all advertisement of like what can go wrong, rather than having advertisements like they're doing with e-cigarettes and making like beautiful women and stuff.
But if we're in the workplace, that's something that could happen outside. What about internally here?
Internally, you could put up like posters.
Yeah.
Showing people.
That's a great idea. Yep, some posters.
Maybe have people go to presentations.
Yeah, have more presentations. What about you, Caitlin? Can you think of something?
I think because there's a similar risk between the current cigarettes that are out, like cigarettes and e-cigarettes, we can't, everyone's entitled to their right to have a cigarette. I don't think you can ever remove that right. But what you can do is you can, give some guidelines around it. Obviously, if we're talking e-cigarettes, right now when people smoke, they go outside or they're away from, I know there's laws that have been passed that you can't smoke within restaurants in those areas. I don't see why it's any different with e-cigarettes. There's a similar risk content, not necessarily the social impact of the smell and people not wanting to breathe the passive cigarette smoking. But you could do, if you're smoking an e-cigarette, you actually walk away, or you go outside, you go away under the similar guidelines as cigarettes now.
So moving out. So would you ask a client to move to a particular area, or move if they could move out of? Could there be a designated area?
You could do a designated area. I think it more is, you can't do it inside a building. You can't do it in the office space. You have to go outside.
Maybe not in confined areas, because in a car or a vehicle as well, that's very dangerous.
Outside. Are there any other places in the workplace where you could see that there could be a high risk in our work area?
Yeah, I think places like open plan offices and the cafe or break rooms. That's it's a common area, and there'll be just need to be respectful with our colleagues that they may not want to be in the same room as an e-cigarette. So there's some guidelines around that.
Also, like in any like computer rooms or anything with like electronics around,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Or like I know that's or it was going to be banned in the hospitals, but like with anywhere with like pressurized oxygen or cooling systems or anything like that, that's be pretty bad.
Yeah. Oxygen, electronics. How would you feel about if a work colleague wanted to put their e-cigarette charger on next to you after having seen that?
I definitely think twice now.
Yeah. It's something that we can think about for further discussions. We can put that to one side. It's tricky because it's unregulated. It's just something that we can consider. We can be mindful of. It's not that all e-cigarettes batteries are going to explode, because at the moment it's unregulated. But the government's trying to bring in regulations that will make it safeguard everyone. So these are maybe things that we can put in place as an interim until laws have changed.
Yep.
Well, I think that was a really good discussion. Has anyone got anything else that they'd like to add to the...
There's only one problem that I'm thinking with like getting people to go outside is like a lot of people who are using e-cigarettes want to get away from smoking, and so if they're forced to go outside where other people are smoking normal cigarettes, then there's no point in them.
Yep, so there's a conflict between smokers and non-smokers in designated areas.
Yeah.
And so perhaps those two areas could be separated for people.
Yeah.
So separation of smoking and non-smoking. Designated areas. Yep, that's great. So just to recap on what we've spoken about today, and thank you all for coming in. So some of that risks that we identified are the health risks, the safety of the e-cigarettes and the batteries, the fact that e-cigs are unregulated, and it feels like we've kind of gone backwards in how we're regulating the cigarettes. Things that we can do are to create some posters for in the work area, give more presentations. I might hand that over to you, Lachlan. Not to smoke indoors, to perhaps have a designated area outside, but where that could be separate from smoking. To work out what are our high risk areas, which might include cafes and workrooms, and to ban electronic cigarettes from areas like electronic rooms and where there's pressurised oxygen. So I think that was a great discussion. I'd just like to thank you for your input. There's just one other thing that I need you to do. For me, it's to fill in the evaluation form of how well I have done my discussion today, and thank you again for